Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm working on a little digital piece, and this one, the thing that really jump-started it was I was looking at artwork for inspiration and ideas, and I was looking at a bunch of them that had halftones in them, and I loved the look of these, and I wanted to do something that felt really digital, if that makes sense. I wanted to use a texture that would feel and look really technological in a way. So that's what made me think of for the bedrock of this piece. But ultimately, this one, I really just let myself follow the way that I wanted it to grow as I was working on it, which I think is one of the biggest things that I do get out of digital that I just don't really from traditional. At least I personally struggle with that really hard. Is that when I'm working traditionally, I have to be very planned out how it's going to end exactly. But with digital, I can be a little bit more creative with the process. And I find that that kind of process helps me to be more creative when I'm working on traditional pieces as well. But that's what I wanted to get out of this. And I wanted halftones, and I wanted something that I could just enjoy and follow as it becomes from the beginning to the end. And there were a few things that as I was working on it, I ended up going back and editing even after I'd finished coloring it pretty much, which is really kind of a relief when you're working digitally to be able to go and make these changes, where traditionally you kind of have to make it work or you have to live with it. So this one was nice to be able to just fix all the things that I would want to fix. A few things that I did do was I ended up moving in her right eye a little bit more. It felt a little bit wide set. I think it could have been fine the way it was, but ultimately I did bring it in a bit closer to the nose so it wasn't quite as wide. I also played a bit with the shape of the hoodie. I make a few different shapes. After a little while, I end up realizing the error of some of them and I have to fix them a little bit. But one thing that I did end up doing with the shape of the hoodie to help solve a compositional thing is that on the right side of the piece, her hoodie, it comes straight up to the piece and breaks the line of the page. And on the other side, it doesn't have anything breaking the edge, but it just has this little slight gap all the way up to the top, and it makes it feel a little bit uneven. So after a little while, I go back in and I add a little bit of the hoodie breaking the edge on the left side as well, and that just really helps it feel evened out and balanced and grounded. So you want to look for things like that where it makes the piece feel like it's not quite settled. And oftentimes it's a really simple fix. I love finding those little things that you add, and then it's just visually you can see that impact. You can feel how it all flows together better, and it feels a lot more solid. I always love actually watching over the color selection phase when I'm working in Photoshop, because I go through a lot of different ones, and a lot of times I'll go through a phase that I actually like better, or I like parts of it better, and it's easy in the moment to just breeze past these things. So it's good to review them and see, okay, what did I like about that, and how can I remember to use those in the future? I think one thing is, looking back at this, there's a phase when I was working on her face where I gave kind of this eyeshadow, a smoky eyeshadow around her eyes, and at that point I felt like it just wasn't quite working the way that I had in my head. But by the time I get to the end, now looking back at it, I think it would have added some interesting contrast, and it helps deepen her eyes and gives it a little bit more intensity to it. So that was something that maybe the way that I did it originally didn't quite work, but I think that I could have made it work a little bit better and gotten the look that I want, because I do think that that would have added a little bit more edge to the character and to the look overall. So that's again something to pay attention to and to remember in the future, that those kind of details can definitely help. And then it came time to doing the part that I was most excited about, and that was adding the halftone. And it's actually really easy. The way that it does work, if you'd like to try it, is that it creates that effect on whatever's on the layer. So it's not an adjustment layer that affects anything below it. It has to be that current layer. So what I did is I figured out where I wanted it to be, and I flattened those layers together. Well, I usually actually duplicate them and then flatten them. That way I still have a backup separated thing. So if I had multiple elements that went into the background or into the figure, I still have those so I can go edit them if I need. But I flattened those, and then I took that layer, and you go up to the top to filter, and then down to pixelate, I believe. And then at the top of that list is color halftone. And then the only thing that I actually changed and played with was the top number, which I don't remember what it says, but I played with that one. And that basically changed the cell size of the halftones. So I think that it'll be fun to experiment with the other stuff in that selection, since I don't really understand everything that goes into it. So I'd like to figure that out. But I just played with it a few different times to see what size I liked the best and what kind of impact I wanted. Ultimately, I went with a slightly larger one, so I didn't want it to be too dizzying. I found that the smaller they got, the more it had this repeating pattern thing that just kind of made me get a little bit dizzy. But I did that, and then I also did one on her face where it was a smaller dot pattern, but I also went in and used a masking layer, or a layer that attaches to that layer that masks it, and that way I broke it up and made it more of this soft gradient, so it was not this strong halftone covering her entire face. It was just hints around her cheekbones and a little bit in her hair. So I really liked that, where it wasn't one solid halftone. It just added a little bit more interest and variety to it. And that is it for today. I do have prints of her available if you'd like. There's a link down in the description. There's also a link to my Patreon where you can get exclusive content. And speaking of Patreon, just a tiny spoiler, this will be included in the 25 and the 32 international package. So don't order that if you did get that for April. Those will be in the mail for you shortly. But yeah, that's about it. I'll be back on Saturday with a watercolor piece. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you then.